Hello and welcome to another one of my Emacs videos. In this video, I'm going to talk about doing web search inside Emacs. This is something that was missing in my workflow for a while, and then I started making some utilities for it. And recently I decided to just put it all in one package and publish it. So with that said, let me jump to my Emacs window and let me open up the show notes that I made for this video. Now, if you have seen some of my previous packages, I use consult and embark to get search results within Emacs mini buffer. For example, to look at GitHub repositories using GitHub command line tool, or to search for emails using mu4e. Here in this case, I'm going to do something similar, but for getting search results from search engines like Google, Bing, Wikipedia, etc., and then combining them with some other sources that might be local, like my lfeed or Chrome notes, which really enables me to do research quickly and find the information that is most important to me very quickly and efficiently. Now, just to give you a quick teaser of what you will see by the end is here is a screenshot where you can see I'm searching for the search term encryption down here, and you can see that inside the mini buffer I'm getting results from different sources, my Chrome notes, and also from Brave search, and then I can do all sorts of different actions on them. That's what I'm going to show you in this video. But before we look at the package itself, I'm going to take a look at web search in browsers, just to get an idea of what are the features in browsers that we use, and in my workflow what things look like, and then show you how I can then I have built some of the same features within consultweb. All right, so let me open Firefox here. All right, here I have Firefox and Google Chrome next to each other. So let's first look at Firefox on the left here. So if I go to the address bar here and I start typing how to do, you can see I get suggestions for completing what I'm typing here. I also get suggestions from Firefox history, how to do, let's say, web search in Emacs. And now if I enter, it's going to use my default search engine. Of course, I have the option of adding more search engines I've done as I've done down here, and I can use, I think, Alt or Option key on Mac OS to change the search engine. I've also defined shortcut keys. So here, for example, if I say G and then hit a space, it's automatically set the search engine to Google. If I do maybe D, it uses DuckDuckGo. I think I've set P for perplexity. Let me see. Yeah, P for perplexity, etc., etc. Now, so let me just use my default search engine, which is Google right now. Now, if I hit enter, it loads the Google page with the search query that I entered. Let's take a look at up here. So all the browser is doing is opening this link that is the search page on Google, and then passing some parameters to it. So Q, which is my query, is how to do web search in Emacs, and it also passes the client so that Google knows how to present results in this case. Now, beyond this, everything else is controlled by Google search itself. So The results you see here, how it's presented, sorting, etc. Everything is controlled by Google. There are of course tools here. You can maybe filter a little bit, maybe change sorting, etc., or do advanced search, and this is all defined by Google. Now, if I go in a Chrome, I also have similar features here. So, for example, if I say d space, I can get DuckDuckGo search engine. And let's see, if I do how to do web search in Emacs, and if I enter, here you can see the results look a little bit different because in Google Chrome I've enabled this AI snippet suggestions. So Google uses its own AI, generative AI to get the answer to this question. I also have the option to ask follow-up right here. So I say, can you expand on that? And if I hit enter, I can continue this conversation with AI. You can see the UI looks a little bit different. There is this search labs here inside Google Chrome. If I go there, there are some features, new, especially AI features that I can enable. In Firefox, this is not available. In Firefox, you just get some quick settings right now. All right. So overall, we can see the features are more or less the same, with just a little bit of difference between the two browsers. And then important thing is that everything is essentially controlled by Google and how Google decides to present the results to you. Now I'm gonna also show you another browser, Arc browser, which I have been using as my default browser. So let me close Chrome and I can do this here. So this is a newer browser, has some new interesting features. Overall, very similar functionalities. Let me see. Maybe I close this here. All right, very similar functionalities. So when I do, or actually let me do this. So I can do Command T. And it opens the address bar right here in the center. In Arc, they have tried to make this more like a command bar, so you can do all different things and using shortcuts here. They have also added some nice features. For example, if I do C space, it automatically can send prompts to ChatGPT. Or if I do M space, it can automatically search my Gmail inbox. And then if I do how to do web search in Emacs, they have also added this option of hitting Shift plus Enter, which then opens the top result from the search results on my default search engine. So in this case, it's going to run this query in Google and open the first link. This is similar to what Google does with I'm feeling lucky search. All right, so other than that, I think overall the features here are very much similar to Firefox and Chrome. They have some other features for tab manager, etc. I've been trying Arc as my default web browser for a few weeks, and I think overall it's a so-so browser. I may go back to Firefox as my default browser at the end, because there are some features here that I think are missing, and I prefer to have Firefox and all the extensions that it provides. Okay, so let me full screen this one. All right, so now let's go back to my Emacs window. So I showed you Firefox, Chrome, and Arc. There are other browsers, of course, but more or less the features and the way web search works in browsers are the same. Now, there are a few things that sticks out. The first thing is that pretty much every one of them force you to pick a default search engine. This is despite the fact that nowadays our internets are fast enough to run the search on multiple services and get the results and present all of them next to each other to you. part of this is because of how things have evolved over time and how search engines and search providers limit you, and they have terms in their the terms of services in by the search providers can sometimes limit you in presenting their results next to results from someone else, and the browsers do not really have any control over any of that anyway. And then the backends of how these searches are done is not always transparent, and you don't have a lot of control and customization. So for example, I showed you some AI snippets on Google in Google Chrome, but you cannot really see what is the model that is using, changing the model, changing the parameters, and if you're a power user or if you're a scientist, you're playing around with some of these things, you don't really have a lot of control over how those things work. You don't have control over the UI either, like how the results are presented, whether how the links are sorted, what you see when they show the snippets from the links for you, etc. Most of those things are defined by the source provider for general use case, and you don't really get to customize it for your own workflow anymore at all. Then accessing previous search is something that is surprisingly complicated. You can of course open browser history and look at the pages you have browsed before, but if I'm in Google and I quickly want to go through the history of the queries that I've run on Google, there's no quick way of doing it. All I have is the browser history. Of course, you can probably copy the queries to clipboard and save things in your clipboard, etc. But it's too complicated, in my opinion, at least. It's something that within Emacs, if you like, mini buffer history is a very common built-in feature where you can really quickly go through all the histories that you have had in mini buffer. If you run iSearch, for example, you can look at previous searches quickly. In command line, you have features and tools that do that as well. But in browser, when you're doing Google search, it's not as easy. Then the last one, search results are not necessarily producible, meaning that you can run the same search on two different computers or a few days apart. You may see different results, that depending on how Google algorithm works in the background and what parameters it uses. Maybe it uses your location, maybe it uses some other things to present results to you. And then, so you cannot always reproduce the exact same results that you get, and you cannot easily save it either. So if you want to, you can of course save a local copy of the HTML, but it's not very useful. You can't quickly extract the important information, the links, the titles, those things out of the search results and save it and come back to it later. All right, so now for all of those reasons, people have been making different tools and packages in Emacs for a long time. There are many different options already inside that do improve on some of these aspects, although it's kind of scattered. So some packages do one thing better, other packages do other things better. So I'm going to quickly review some of these packages and commands, built-in commands in Emacs that help with web searches. As we were searching how to do web search in Emacs in the browsers a few minutes ago, we saw that the first suggestions was EWW, Emacs Web Browser. This is a built-in browser inside Emacs, and I'm going to open EWW right now. So when I do EWW in the command line, I get the option to enter either a URL or a keyword, and you can see I've already done the search how to do web search in Emacs before, so I also have a history of the keywords I've entered before, which is nice. So if I pick this how to do web search in Emacs here, it will send that query to the default search engine in EWW. By default, this is DuckDuckGo, but you can change it to other service providers, search providers. and then you get the results here. EWW is designed for plain text browsers mostly. It doesn't really render complex HTMLs or JavaScripts, etc. well. So depending on the website, it may or may not be a good browser to use for looking at websites. So at the end, I think at least in my workflow, there is a limited use case for directly using EWW, and navigation here is not necessarily easy either. Of course, everything is keyboard based, and you can use your Emacs key bindings, but because modern websites are not really designed for this kind of interface, you have to move around the buffer, find the search bar, and then enter your search term in there, and then find the button and click and enter. So it's not always easy and efficient to use EWW for web searches, and all the other limitations of the browsers also exist here. All EWW does is that allows you to use the browser inside Emacs, but how the results get presented, what backends is used, etc., is still controlled by the search provider. All right, so let me, you can see here, for example, all right. So here, let me go back. This is actually one of the what is going on. All right, let me go back here. You can see, for example, if I am in EWW, I can hit Q to exit, but if I'm inside this box and I hit Q, it starts typing. So sometimes it's kind of confusing when you're in EWW, because you have to pay attention where the marker is and how the key bindings works. So in my experience, it's not the most intuitive way of browsing the internet. Now, there's also a built-in Webkit in Emacs, especially on Mac OS. This is pretty useful. I often use it, especially if I just want to get a quick preview of some websites. So let me show you this as well. Xwidget Webkit browse URL. So here I have to enter a URL. Let's use Google, and I think this should fine. All right. So now I can here in Google, and I can do how to do web search in Emacs, and I get the results here. This is essentially like a Safari inside Emacs without all the bells and whistles, and maybe lacking some of the security features, etc. But you can use it to see the website, especially if you are looking at a website where EWW doesn't render it well, or there are missing like pictures or JavaScripts that is kind of limiting the your experience of the web page. You can use Xwidget to see an actual HTML render of the web page. All right. Let me close. Sometimes the key binding in Xwidget also does not work that well. All right. Okay. Now, so we saw the browsers inside Emacs, but again, they are not really changing the workflow. They just provide a way of browsing the internet inside Emacs. There are packages that then try to help with the workflow a little bit. For example, the built-in Webjump. If I open Webjump here, you'll see it provides a list of built-in search providers that you can then pick the one that you want, maybe Wikipedia, for example. And then I search for Emacs here. And if I hit enter, it will open the Emacs entry on Wikipedia in my default web browser for me. Now, of course, the built-in search providers may not be what you really want, so you can change this variable, set this variable website Webjump sites. We can look at the documentation quickly. Let's see. So it tells you how to set this hot list of search providers in Webjump, and then you define this, and then you can send queries to the web pages that you define yourself. So let me run this code. Now if I do Webjump, I see the list of the web pages that I defined, and maybe I want to use Google. Now one thing that is missing here is that I don't really have access to previous history or future history to, for example, get the word under point or symbol under point, etc. So here I have to type what I'm looking for, how to do web search in Emacs, and then it again sends me back to the browser and opens Google in this case. All right, so now there are other packages that kind of are similar to Webjump, maybe add some useful features and utilities to it. One really good one is Enginemode. So I don't think I have Enginemode installed here, so let me first go to the GitHub repository. I'm going to use my consultgh package here to search for the repo Enginemode, and I think it's this one, HRS Enginemode. Let's look at a preview so we can see the README here. So it tells you that it's a global minor mode for Emacs. It enables you to easily define search engines, bind them to key bindings, and query them from the comfort of your editor. If you read the README, the author tells you that he made it without knowing about Webjump, and it's kind of similar to Webjump, but it does add some useful features that are not necessarily available in Webjump. So here, for example, it shows you how to define an engine for GitHub. So here, let me look for installation. Okay, and it looks like we can just use package to install it. So I'm gonna pick this code here, and let me see, how do def engine doc.go. Oh, here, doc go here. Okay, and I'm gonna copy this code here as well, and okay, cancel this search here. So here I have the code that I copied, Enginemode, and I use a straight instead of ensure, and then I have def engine doc.go. Here you can see, for example, one useful feature that you have is that you can define some transformation hook. So whatever query term that I enter here, it's going to get converted to uppercase, and then that will be sent to the exchange. So let me run this code here. And then if I look for engine search doc.go, and I do the same thing, how to do web search in Emacs. When I hit enter, it sends me back to the browser, doc.go, and you can see now that that my search term got converted into uppercase. So there are a bunch of useful features here that you can use in Enginemode: transformation, maybe use different transformation or different actions for the different search engines. You can really define some pretty complex workflows with using the Enginemode. You can also, if I go back here, actually let me put the marker on here. I'll put the mark on doc.go, and if I'm here and if I do meta n to use my future history, you can see that I can search for what is under point, that is doc.go here. So there are a bunch of interesting, useful features here. There are examples on the repository for different sources and different search providers that you can use. Compared to built-in Webjump, I think it does add some interesting features, but at the end, it's still just a simple get a query, send it to the search provider and open it in the default browser or whatever browser command that you define. Maybe you want to use EWW or something else. There is another package that does something similar, but maybe a little bit different than Enginemode and Webjump, and this one is really designed for searching for thing at point. So let me again go to consultgh and do Emacs Google this. So yeah, this first one I think is the right the repo I'm looking for. So here again it says a set of Emacs functions and bindings to Google under point. So this is really designed for searching whatever is under the current point. Let me see, just to check installation. Yeah, it's on Melpa, so I can just use package again. And if you look at the examples here, for example, they have different commands for doing word or symbol or error or other things under the point. And then there are like commands for like wrapping whatever is under a point in quotes, etc. So let me go back here and let me see. Okay, so I already put the code here. Use package Google this straight T. I will run this. So now I installed Google this, and if I look for Google this, actually let me put my marker on something, maybe straight, and if I do Google this, now you can see that it automatically picks whatever is under point and put it in here, and if I hit enter, it will go to Google and search for straight. Now, and I can also show you here, if I use Google this, I have the lucky search, which does the Google I'm feeling lucky, or I can do Google this line, this mode, this word. There's also Google this search, which then I can enter enter some new search terms, or I can use future history to get what is under point. So this is really designed around using Google and searching for what is already under point in your buffer. Beyond that, again, the workflow is the same. You send this query to the search provider, and you jump in a browser to see the results. Now, there is another category of packages and commands that instead of just getting a query and then quickly going to the browser, it tries to bring some of the functionalities to the Emacs mini buffer. For example, Helm Google, this is part of Helm, which is a bigger package that changes the way that mini buffer candidates are presented, and etc. And it does have a Google Autosuggestion command with it. I don't have Helm installed here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the command line and open a new instance of Emacs, and I know I'm opening another Emacs from within this Emacs, but I think it's fine for now, with a different configuration file where I've installed Helm. So let me open this, and I'm going to bring it here to this screen and put it here on the side. So now in here, if I do meta X, you can see that the commands are presented differently inside the buffer, for example, in this case, and I've done some basic configuration of Helm in this in the init file in this Emacs instance. So now I'm going to look for maybe Helm Google Suggest, right? And if I enter and start typing how to do web, you can see I'm getting a dynamic compilation of what I'm typing here. So I'm going to go with the same search we have been doing so far, how to do web search in Emacs. And when I hit enter, again, it does the same thing. It sends me back to the browser, and I see the results. So this is useful if you want some suggestions and compilation within Emacs. You can, of course, change your default browser, etc. here. But at the end, the workflow is not that different. It just brings the auto suggestions to Emacs mini buffer. Similarly, with Ivy and Council, you have some packages that do something similar. So let me, again, I have to open another instance of Emacs, this time with Ivy. So in this case, with Ivy, there is a package that called consultweb that you can install. I've done that in the configuration file here. So if I do meta x, now here you can see that this is how Ivy shows the results, and then I'm going to look for consultweb. It has consultweb, suggest, search, refresh, search, and thing and point. So if I use just the suggest and I say how to do web, you can see I'm seeing suggestions for completion here in Emacs. Now in Ivy, there is a key binding to select what you typed and not one of the candidates here. I think it's command enter, so let's try that. I'm not sure. Actually, command enter is not enter, maybe shift enter. And then you can see I get the results, and in this case the results from the Google search is presented to you inside the mini buffer in Emacs. So this is pretty useful, so that you don't have to jump to the browser, see the Google page, and then pick the one you want. You can quickly here find the one that you are interested in and open that. Maybe here, for example, I want to look at this basic iSearch, even though that's not really what I was searching for, but just to show you the how this package works. And by default, it opens the results in EWW, but you can change that to also jump into your default browser. Now, a word of caution: if you use Ivy and consultweb, and it's mentioned in the GitHub repository page, this is parsing the results from Google search, and if you do too many hits to the server in a row, your IP may get flagged and things may stop working, and then you have to go to the browser, do some manual test to confirm that you're human, not a bot, etc. So be mindful of that when if you decide to use this package. Now, in my case, I don't really use Ivy. I used to use Ivy before, and I used to use consultweb a lot, but since I moved to Consult, Embark, Vertigo, and the whole Emacs completion framework, I don't use Ivy, so I can't really use consultweb anymore. I don't use Helm. I prefer Vertigo and Consult, and so therefore I cannot really use any of them. And for this reason, I decided to make my own version of those functionalities using Consult and Vertigo, and then I've tried to add a lot more features that are useful for my own workflow. So the package is called consultweb, as you can see here, and let me again go to consult.gh and show you the repository. Let me actually open it in the browser. So here is the page. Right now this repository is private, but I'm gonna release it as a public repository soon. You can see there is quite extensive information on how to install the package, how to configure it, how to customize it, etc., etc. And I'm still gonna add some more information here, maybe add a wiki page for some of the extra functionalities, and then and so you can just refer to the GitHub page for how to install and configure, etc. For now, I'm just gonna run this code here, which simply uses a stray to install consultweb. I'm doing some customization here. For example, I'm slowing down consult a little bit because in certain cases I don't want to hit the API server too often. There are limits with my accounts with APIs that doesn't allow me to run queries more than maybe once a second or so. So I try to set things up in a way that I don't that things don't stop working because I'm hitting the server too often. I am loading consult web sources. This loads all the built-in predefined sources that I'm going to show you, and I'm also loading embark actions for it. And then this section here essentially defines all the API keys that I need to use that will be used when I run searches on Google, Brave, Bing, etc. All right, so now I'm going to show you different features. I'm going to start with simple things and then gradually build on top of that. So the first thing that we can do is just a simple Google search. There is a command called consultweb Google. So let me run that. Actually, I did not run the code yet. So let me first run this code to install the package. And now I should be able to run consultweb Google. Yeah. All right, so if I do consult web Google, I can type a search query, how to do web search in Emacs. And when I hit enter, okay, it's asking me for my password so it can get the API key. So let me type in my password. I hope I did it right. Yeah, okay. So now it's getting the results and presenting it here in the mini buffer, similar to what we saw with Council Web. It's grouping them based on domain, and I can see the title, the link. It's on github.com here, and then a short snippet of the link as well. And then I can use a consult preview, similar to other consult packages. I've bound this to Command O in my config. So if I do Command O, I get a preview. Right now, I've set things up so that the preview loads in EWW. I can see a preview here. If I go back here, if I enter, and let me see. Yeah, this first link looks interesting. Consult web search package on GitHub. So let's open that. It opens the link in the browser, and this seems like yet another package that does helps with web searching in Emacs. And let me see. Okay, so you can do this. Search for rhinos on Wikipedia. Oh, you can do this from Emacs and from the terminal. So kind of similar to maybe Webjump and Enginemode, where you can have different sources and you can run the query on them, and you can define different sources, etc. So very much similar to Webjump and Enginemode, and then they have a relatively long list of supported providers here as well. Okay, now let me go back. All right, so that was first thing. Now you may ask, okay, about auto suggestion. That was pretty useful to have in Council Web. In Consult Web, this is optional. So you can there is this variable Consult Web default Autosuggest command. If you bind it to a command that then it can gets auto suggestion, it will use this command for doing auto completion and suggestion. There are at least two built-in commands for this: Brave Autosuggest and Google Autosuggest version of it. I prefer Brave Autosuggest because Google Autosuggest is not exactly officially supported, and there is no direct API and API documentation for it. So I'm going to use Brave for now. So once I run this code and I go back and do Consult Web Google, now you can see that here in the mini buffer I see Consult Web Dynamic Brave Autosuggest, which means as I type in the mini buffer, I'm going to start seeing completion. How to do web search, and you can see this is getting completed here dynamically as I type in Emacs, or I can go back here and say Firefox. So you can see there is dynamic auto suggestions, and when I enter, this gets picked up and sent to Google, and now I'm seeing results from the query that I just ran. And then from here I can do the exact same thing that I did before, get a preview or select the candidate and see it in the browser, etc. Now, by default, the web search commands only show 5 candidates, only fetch 5 candidates, but you can change this by changing consult web default count. So here I will increase it to 10, and if I do this, and note that here I have access to my previous search terms with using history in minibuffer, so I can do how to do, oh, I missed a space here, how to do web search in Emacs. And when I select this, now you can see that I'm seeing more results. Now I see 10 instead of just 5. So there are all sorts of customization and variables that you can set to change the behavior. Now, okay, that was just one source, Google. What if we want to use another source? Let's say Brave search. So there is consult web Brave. Brave. And again, since it's using the same autosuggest command that I have defined globally up here with consult web default autosuggest command, so I can go back to the search that I did before, get the autosuggestion, and now get the results from Brave. Now, before we picked I think maybe this one. So now I'm gonna here, let's take a look at how the sorting is in this mini buffer command. You can see right now this howardism.org from Howard Abrams' blog is on top, but I'm gonna go down here and pick this Emacs Web Browser, and I select that, and it opens it in the browser. Now when I go back, if I run that exact same search again, you will see that command, the one I picked, is right on top. And at the same time, it is sorted by groups. So the one that I picked is on top. The group that is in is also on top. And then the very next group, you can see the one that I picked before. Now here, if I go, let's say, pick this one or this word search, and then I go back just to show you how the sorting works. Now you can see that the sorting changed again. The one that I picked last time is on top. Then Emacs Web Browser is the second one that I picked is here, and then Howard Abrams' blog is down here. So you can see that the sorting is helping me pick the ones that I picked before quickly and find the ones that I'm interested. So if I do some search and I find something that is really interesting, so I try to use consult preview here to find the ones that kind of look interesting to me, and then when I select them, it will automatically get bumped up in the list. So next time I do the same search, I can find the ones that were interesting from previous searches right on top of the list. Now, of course, maybe we don't want this grouping, so I can turn the grouping off by setting consult web group by to nil. So now if I do the same search again, now you can see that the ones that I picked recently are all on top without grouping. So now everything is presented in just one group, and everything is sorted based on what I picked before, and then the rest of it is sorted by what the search provider is giving me. So this is pretty useful for not only doing the searches and getting the results in the mini buffer, but also sorting them based on your own previous preferences and what you have picked in the past as good results, rather than just relying on the search provider to sort the results for you. You can also, instead of doing simple grouping, you can also define some custom commands and use them for grouping. So here, for example, I define a custom command, and you can kind of look at the source code and see how the group functions work in terms of what variable to pass, etc. And in this case, for example, I'm getting the URL of the link, and then extracting the domain part of it, and then looking at the domain, I do some regexp and say, okay, if this extension is .gov, then that's a government website. If it's .edu, maybe it's a university website. If it's on GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, etc., group it under code. If it's on Wikipedia or some dictionaries, put it on encyclopedia. If it's on Reddit or Stack Overflow, put it under community, etc., etc. So now and then I set the group by variable to this function that I just defined. So if I run this, and then I go back and run the same search again, now you can see that things are grouped by the command that I just defined. Again, the sorting is still the same as what we had before. The results that I picked last time are on the very top, but sorted by what I picked on the top and within their own group. So free for open source software is right now, the group is on top because I picked one of those items last time. There is others because I picked this link before, and then everything else is sorted based on what comes from the search provider. So I can see code, community from like Reddit and Stack Overflow, etc., etc. All right. Now I'm gonna change the grouping back to just the default domain. I can also change the default action, of course. If instead of using the my default web browser, I can change it to EWW browse. So by changing the variable consultweb default browse function. So if I do this and I on the same search, and let's pick something that may look good in EWW. Well, EWW website itself might be pretty good. Yeah, and you can now see that it opens it in EWW. You can also use this with other packages. For example, there is org web tools by Alpha Papa that I really like for converting HTML into org files, especially useful for reading articles. So let me change the default function to org web tools quickly. And then I'm gonna pick something. Maybe I pick the blog post from Howard Abrams again. So now you can see that it got converted to an org file, and I can see it in an org file format. And this is really useful for articles because I can quickly minimize all the subsections and sub entries and look at the structure and maybe only look at the part that I'm interested in and read that. And you know, if there is source blocks here, I get it within a source blocks, etc., etc. So for certain sources and for certain websites, I really like using org web tools. You can also change this to Webkit to other browser functions. So for now, I'm going to set this default action to a custom command that I have, my browser URL, that allows me to pick the browser that I want to use. Now, so we saw some results from web search engines, Google and Brave. How about AI? How about generative AI? How about ChatGPT, etc.? Can we get something similar to what we saw in Google Chrome earlier, where you can get suggestions from AI assistants? So here there is a function that comes built in, consultweb ChatGPT. And again, the same Autosuggest command that I've used before is working globally, so I'm going to use this to run the same search. It takes a little bit of time because it's making an API call to ChatGPT now, and okay, the results are here, and you can see the first or a small snippet of it right here in the mini buffer. I can use consult preview and you can see this is the prompt that I sent to ChatGPT, and here is the result. Now, of course, this is just a simple send the prompt and get the results. You cannot really continue this conversation with ChatGPT here. The reason for that is because there's no reason to reinvent the wheel here. There are packages that do that, like GPTel. So instead of reinventing the entire wheel there, I'm using GPTel, which is one of my favorite ones so far when it comes to using AIs and using ChatGPT or similar generative AI services. So I suggest you take a look at it. You can let me actually open the README for the repo on GitHub again. So it's from CarThink GPTel. So here you can see it has support for ChatGPT, Microsoft Azure, Olama, GPT for All, Google Gemini, and Perplexity, and all sorts of different service providers here. And you can just read this wonderful documents on GitHub repository on how to set it up, how to get everything working. It's really a very nice package for using chat AIs in Emacs. So I have installed GPTel here already, so I can directly then jump to consultweb GPTel, and again I run the same search, how to do web search in Emacs. Now in this case, instead of making an API call and getting the results and showing it in Emacs buffer, I just put a placeholder here that just says ask GPTel how to do web search in Emacs, but when I get a consult preview, then the API call is made and the results are presented. Or if I just enter and select that buffer, you would also get the same results. All right, now here, because now we are inside the GPTel buffer, and with this conversation, now I can continue the conversation and do the same thing I did before in Google Chrome. Can you expand on that? And I can send this to GPTel by Command C, Enter. And here you can see, essentially, here is a more detailed step-by-step guide. All right, so let me kill this buffer. So you can see that now we have also an AI assistant with consultweb. Now here's the part where really interesting things start. Now we can put all of them together and do a multi-source search. So I'm gonna set back the default count to 5 so we don't get too many results in the same mini buffer. And then I'm defining a set of multiple sources: YouTube, Stack Overflow, Wikipedia, Brave, and GPTel. This is a variable called consultweb multi-sources. So I've set this up, and then I can run this command consultweb multi. All right, so let me find this. Okay, consultweb multi. I'm going to run the exact same search that we have been using before, and it takes a second, and bam, you already have the results from Brave. I have 5 links from Brave. I have the same GPTel results placeholder that we saw before, so I can use consult preview to get that results here. I have hits from Stack Overflow. I have some YouTube links. So let me see. Emacs browsing the web. Or actually this one from Prot might be interesting. Emacs search and replace. We say, oh, that's not really relevant to what I'm looking for. Maybe Emacs browsing the web might be interesting. So I can do consult preview. And okay, now the preview in EWW is not really that useful for visiting YouTube pages because it doesn't render. So what I'm going to do now, right here, I'm going to change the preview function as I have set it up in this show notes already to XWidget WebKit. So let me run this code and then I will do the same search again with consult web multi. I get multiple results from different sources, and then I wanted to see this one. So now if I do consult preview, it opens it in Webkit, and I have the video from YouTube playing right here inside Emacs. I can watch it here. I can interact with it, and then when I'm done, I just stop this one, and let me see, and I close that buffer. All right, and if I hit enter here, it jumps into the browser. I can move, and then I have the YouTube inside the browser. I can maybe full screen, etc. All right, now, so okay, now we have seen web searches from search engines, AI assistants, doing a multi-source search, but that's still not the most efficient, the best way of doing things. Maybe we would want to have some dynamic completion as we are typing for a query term. So let's look at consult web dynamic Google. So for every source that I showed you, there is also a dynamic version of it. So if I run consult web dynamic Google, now I can see here, as I type how to do, I start getting results. Web search in Emacs. Note that this is not completion and suggestions for the query term. These are actual the results from what I'm typing here. So if here, for example, I delete Emacs and add Firefox, I will get updated results for this new query. Of course, you can set things up in how quickly this is sent to the server, how long it waits before it sends a new query to the server, etc. But you can see that it's pretty nice to be able to get dynamic completion as you type in right here inside the mini buffer. Now we can do even more. We can pass variables to this dynamic search. So let me show you consult web dynamic GPTL. And I can run the same search that we had before, how to do web search in Emacs. All right. And I'm going to get a consult preview. As you can see here, up here, it's running ChatGPT, and here in the mini buffer, you can also see that it's using ChatGPT and GPT 3.5 turbo model. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass some variable to change the model. And the way to do it is to use consult async command line argument format, which you can look at the documentation for consult grep, for example, to see how this works, or within the consult web repo and documentation, I also explain how this works. But basically, you just add 2 dashes, dash, and then you add your variables and values to pass to the variable, similar to what you would be doing in command line. So here, for example, I want to pass the variable model, and instead of GPT 3.5, let's use GPT 4. Now, when I do that, you see this gets updated. Again, this is just a placeholder right now, but it's showing you that this time it's going to use ChatGPT and GPT-4. Now, if I get the consult preview, now you see that it's going to give me a little bit more verbose results, maybe some code snippets, and maybe uses some links, and tells you that it's also talking about Enginemode, for example, things that we have seen earlier. Now, okay, ChatGPT at GPT-4, but let's try something a little bit maybe faster than that, and that would be, I can change the backend. I have to use 2 dash backend and perplexity. So now you can see it's going to use the backend perplexity with this model, Sonar Medium Chat. I can also pass model to change this model here. This is using the the setting for the GPTel package. I've defined these backends in the settings for GPTel. So when I say when I pass backend perplexity, it goes finds the perplexity backend and finds the first model in the way I've defined it in GPTel configuration, and uses that. So now if I use this, you can see that up here it changed the backend to perplexity, and now it's using perplexity to get results. So you can see how I can quickly compare different AI models, find the one that is really giving me the results that I like, and then just use that. Also, you can see that down here it says a stream. So if I want, I can then say a stream nil, and now if I get the preview, instead of just showing a stream of results, it waits, takes the whole results, and then shows it at once. All right. So you have some options here to pass different values to this AI assistant from from within the Emacs mini buffer, and get the results and compare them and etc. etc. All right. Great. Now we did dynamic completion inside the mini buffer, but can we do multi-source and dynamic completion? And the answer is yes. Here I'm defining consultweb dynamic sources, and again GPTel, Brave, Wikipedia, Stack Overflow, and YouTube. So let me, maybe I should run this. And then I'm going to use the command consultweb dynamic. All right, so this is the dynamic version of the multi-source search. Let's use the same search that we had before, but I'm going to get rid of the command line arguments here. Okay, so you can see now that I have search results from Brave, from GPTel, from Stack Overflow, YouTube, etc. And if I delete Emacs and just put Firefox, it gets updated and it shows me the results for search in Firefox. Let me change this back to Emacs now. So I have dynamic completion with multiple sources, and I can also pass variables here. So there are default variables that are kind of reserved for the search engines, like count and page and grouping. So let me show you. For example, I can say count 10, and when it updates, which already did, I missed it. Now I have 10 counts of results from the search engines. If I do page 1, so the page is a 0 index, so page 1 means show me the results from 11 to 20 now with count 10. I can also, instead of count and page, I can just use n, let's say 5 and page 1. So now I'm seeing 5 results, and page 1 means that shows the results from 6 to 10 instead of 0 to 5. Then I can do G or group, and instead of using the source, I'm going to say group by domain. So now what we can see here is that we are getting results from multiple sources, grouping them by the domain, and then presenting them to you for some reason the shift tab is not working. So here you can see that it's grouped by domain. So for example, I have results from Stack Overflow. This may be coming from Stack Overflow itself, the search provider, or it might be coming from Brave. So in this case, I don't care what the source is and where it comes from. Although you can see here where which source it's coming from. But you can see that now I have a very good way of looking at the results and group them in the way that I want them. Okay, now let me cancel this. So now we have dynamic completion. We can do it on a multi-source, and we can pass variables to dynamically change how the results are presented, and or what models are used in terms of AI system. And by the way, in this case, if I do how to do web search in Emacs, I can still here pass a variable for model and say GPT-4, and you can see that that changes the GPTel candidate and changes the model here. So these variables that I put in a multi-source dynamic search is sent to all of these sources, but the functions that are used in the backend to get the results will ignore these variables if it's not relevant for those sources. So you can have a case where you change the model and at the same time you change the count, let's say, to 2. And now you can see that for the search engines we only have 2 results, and then for the AI assistant we have the GPT-4 model. So you can come up with all sorts of combinations of variables and dynamic search to get really the results that you want. And let me also mention right here that because I'm using Embark, I also have access to Embark export command or Embark live command. So let's just do export right now, and then I get the results that I had. So this combination of models and variables that I pass to those search sources, and I just get all of them in one buffer. And here I have the option of just hitting, let's say, enter here, and it's asking me which browser to use. Let's use Arc, and it opens that link. And if I go back, I still have this buffer. I can do the same thing on all the results. I can look at the results from GPTel, etc., etc. So I can really build the results from searches in an ad hoc version approach, really narrow down to what I like, and then use a Embark export or something. By the way, speaking of narrowing down, let me go back here. So in the dynamic commands, if once you get the results in the mini buffer, you can also then do a narrow down by doing this. So you can type the hashtag and then say, let me see, let's say Emacs here. Okay, so now I just narrowed to the ones that do contain Emacs. Maybe let's pick something a little bit more interesting, CR. So now you can see that it's kind of narrowed. So you can get the results and then do a narrow down, similar to how consult grep and other dynamic or async consult functions work. All right. Now, that's all very good, but it would be even nicer if we can also combine that with some local sources, maybe buffers that are open in Emacs, or maybe lfeed, for example, right? So I have also included some commands, at least as examples, for how to add other sources that are not necessarily web sources, and combine them all together. For example, I have some for using consult nodes package for like looking at my org-roam nodes, and for lfeed to look at lfeed feeds. And then I have defined this command consultweb omni that searches pretty much everywhere, web sources, local sources. And so here I'm defining this, I'm setting this variable consultweb dynamic omni sources. It looks at my org-roam nodes, it uses GPTel, Wikipedia, Brave, and lfeed, and also runs a consult line multi, which essentially runs a regexp search for what I put in the mini buffer in all the open buffers in Emacs. So let me see what I'm looking for. Consult Web Dynamic Omni. Consult Web Dynamic Omni. So this is a dynamic completion search, and it's using omni sources, meaning combination of local and web searches. So let me search here. Maybe I search for Emacs. Okay, now you can see I'm getting results from Brave. I'm also getting results from my own org roam nodes. So I have some nodes on Emacs on Mac OS, for example. I'm getting consult line multi results. So it's running an Emacs search in open buffer. So if I do here, I will see the same buffer that we have been using for the show notes, and then I can run this on GPTel. I ask GPTel Emacs, and it tells me what Emacs is, etc., etc. And this is dynamic. So if I instead of Emacs, if I say encryption, okay, I get results from Brave, GPTel, Brave and GPTel. Oh, encryption, not encryption. All right, GPTel, Wikipedia. I have there's some YouTube video in my LFeed feeds that talk about encryption. There is something on my org roam nodes. So you can see the power of seeing the results, especially when you're doing research and you're looking at you're trying to find as much information, as much resources on certain topics. This is really useful because now I have access to YouTube, I have access to search engines. I can look into my own org roam nodes or org nodes and my own LFeed feeds to really find out everything about this one topic. And note that when I cancel here, I go back to where I started. Of course, here, because we looked at this buffer with line multi, it changed the position. Now, so let me see, where were we? I go back here, local sources, consult web omni. All right. So now you can see that you have this functionality that is kind of similar to a Spotlight search or Omni search in some other desktop, and Spotlight search in macOS and Omni search in some other desktop environment, but all within Emacs with sources that you define, and you pick where to look for the results, and with variables and settings that you pick, how many results you want to fetch, what models you want to use for AI assistance, etc., etc. Now, it doesn't stop there. I have also other resources like PubMed. I'm a scientist. I do academic literature search all the time, reading in-depth technical papers and literature. So I use PubMed a lot. So I've defined some PubMed sources here. Consult Web Dynamic PubMed. Let's look at that. And let's search for something interesting. Maybe quantum sensors. Okay. And again, I get results from PubMed on quantum sensors, different papers. Maybe let's look at this result from Nature. And here is the PubMed page for that paper. And if I enter, it jumps into the browser, similar to what we have seen before. And then, okay, here I need to do Q maybe first. Okay. And then we can also do a multi-source search for just academic literature. So I have defined a function for that, consult web scholar. So I am here setting consult web scholar sources to PubMed and Scopus. And then I look for consult web scholar. This is a dynamic search as well. So if I again do quantum sensors, I get results from both PubMed and Scopus. And in this case, and then since this is dynamic, maybe I want to change the count to 10. So I get more results. And let's see what do we have here. Rainbow. Maybe one of these scientific reports one might be interesting. So let's open here, preparation of high resolution micro nano something. So actually, let's take a preview first. All right, so this is a preview. I accept that. Right here, if I do download PDF, let me see, I can even open the PDF right here and start reading it there. But specifically for academic literature, it might be interesting to open it in EWW or org web tools. So let me do this, and I'm gonna try org web tools, and let's see how it looks like there. So it takes a little while to download it, but now you can see here that I have the article and I see the structure of the article: introduction, methods, results. Of course, it's not always the best for looking at figures and pictures, but you can really get a sense of what the paper is all about here. And then for the links, actually, let me see if did this download the. I don't think. Yeah, this is a link to a web page that is not going to work. But you can read the text at least pretty quickly in org web tools, and then for results, you can always go back to the browsers and see figures, etc. All right, now let me close this buffer. Yeah, I don't need to do that now. Okay, so now we have seen doing searches in Emacs. We have done multi-source searches. We have seen dynamic searches. We have seen dynamic and multi-source. We have seen academic literature. Now we can add on top of all of that some Embark actions. I already showed you some like Embark exports. So first, let's look at maybe the default Embark actions that are built in right now. So consultweb dynamic. Let's do this. Oh yeah, let's do that search. How to do web search in Emacs. So here, if I call Embark on, let's say, EWW, and let me do this so you can see better. Consult web. There are different actions defined. For example, copying the URL, or copying the title, or inserting URL or title, or show preview, open in external browser, etc. So you can use any of these actions and run it on the command. For example, let me here do a quick. I'm gonna insert the link to this web page right here in this org mode buffer, which is going to be insert URL, and you can see that I got an org mode formatted link here with the title and the link that goes to that web page. So this is pretty useful, especially if you want. So let me open an empty org buffer here, and I'm gonna do the same thing that the same search that I did before, and now this time I'm gonna select some a few of these results using Embark select, and then I'm gonna run Embark act on all of them, and then insert URL. And it says, do you want to do this on 3 consult web candidates? I say yes, and look at that, we got the links to 3 results. So again, this is really good for not only getting the results from different sources, but then also saving them, organizing them, putting them in blog posts that you're writing, etc., etc. All right. Now, that's just built-in embark actions. You can also define your own actions. So here, for example, I'm doing some note taking for maybe academic literature, where I take the candidate from the mini buffer, I extract URL, DOI, maybe title, authors, journal, date, etc. And then I make an org entry for it with some sub headings for notes. So let's try this. Let me run this, and maybe I have to also eval those two. All right, so now I added this custom embark action function that I defined to the category for consultweb embark scholar. consultweb embark scholar action. So this only works on a scholar category. So in embark, you can, when you use embark and consult, you can define different categories, and then you can get custom functions per category. In this case, I'm defining a special category for scholar sources, because they tend to be different in their literature, academic literature. They have a different fields like authors, journals, etc. So here, what I'm going to show you is I'm going to run consult web scholar. I'm going to look for quantum sensors, and let's increase that to even 20. So now we have 20 results from PubMed and from Scopus. And then I'm going to for some reason, okay, it took a little while to load the results from Scopus. Maybe 20 was a little bit too much for Scopus to handle. But I'm going to run embark to act all, insert note, which is the embark action that I just defined. And it's asked me, do you want to run this on 40 candidates? I say yes, and bam, look at this. I have entry for 40 different papers here that I just found, where I have the author, journal, published on the date, and a sub entry for the notes. And the title here is a link to the paper. So I can go to the paper, read it, take notes, and compile. And maybe here I also added title here for quantum sensors, so that I know what I search for. So I can quickly compile this kind of literature review just by using the consult web to get the results, and also putting them in an org format file where I can then add notes, etc. Maybe I save this for now, and then I close this buffer. All right. There are other useful embark actions that you can think of. Maybe you want to open YouTube videos with MPV instead of the browser, because you don't want to see the ads, or you don't want to get distracted by suggestions from YouTube, etc. So here is a function that simply says take a URL and then pass it to MPV as a sub-process. And then I define embark action that takes the candidate, takes the URL from the candidates, and passes it to that function. Now, of course, if you use the MPV package for Emacs, you can directly use that function. You don't need to define your own function for playing videos with MPV. But here I'm just showing you how to do it even without depending on another function. So maybe I define these here, and then I have to maybe eval this separately to make sure that it gets bound. All right, so now I've bound in embark actions, I bound OM to opening in MPV. So let's do consult dynamic YouTube. Let's search for maybe consult GH. Maybe I get one of those, one of my own videos. Okay, I misspelled, but I still got what I wanted. Let's see, consult GH embark integration, maybe this video. So now I do embark, open in MPV, and it takes a few seconds to download this video.
Right. In the previous
and
video, I showed
here we
you
go.
different actions
Let
that
me
you can
actually
run
pause
on.
this. So now I'm seeing I did some search on YouTube, got the video, opened it in MPV, all from within Emacs without having to go to the browser, without all the distraction, and then I can close this. So you can see how versatile the whole workflow becomes once you start using Consult Web, combining it with Embark actions, maybe combining it with also other packages. So then you can get results from the web and then do whatever you like to do with them, however you like to do it. I already talked about categories. So as I said, the Scholar sources, I'm defining them under a different category. You can also define your own categories or change the categories on what the predefined sources that comes in. For that, you need to read the documentation and the manual and the GitHub repo and the wiki pages, etc., to see how you can do that. I'm not going to show that to you now. So with that, I'm just going to wrap up here. Before I summarize some of the important features that I showed you, I would also like to give you a word of caution on two things. One, if you browse internet inside Emacs, you need to be aware of the security concerns, because inside Emacs codes are usually trusted. So web pages and web browsers are a huge target for attacks. So I try not to open random links, things from sources that I don't know if I can trust inside Emacs. So for those things, it's always better to jump into the browser and look at the links inside the browsers, because in browsers you may get a better built-in security and threat scanning, etc. The second thing that I want to tell you is Consult Web is built around using APIs, which then means you need accounts with those APIs, you need API keys, and for each service you need to make your own account, get your API key, and that means that you also have to understand the terms of using those API services. Consult Web is agnostic to how you use it. For what sources, if you want, you can also take some web pages and parse the HTML and get the results that you want. Whether you're allowed to do that or not, and whether there's terms of this of the service you're using allows you to do that, that's up to you to decide and to use the utilities that Consult Web provides, which are wrappers around consult and URL retrieve and some other packages. It's up to you to decide how to use it and whether it's allowed to do it that way or not. Also, there might be costs associated with calling APIs, like calling OpenAI API for ChatGPT prompts is not for free. So when you use Consult Web, you also need to be aware of what you're doing in terms of making calls to APIs and if it's gonna cost you money to do this or not. So I think it's before you start using the package, you should understand what it is that you're doing under the hood, so then you don't get surprise charges or do something that is not allowed by the services. Now, to summarize the features, some of the important things, Consult Web is relatively minimal. It's the code base, the base for the base of the package is only about 1,000 lines without white spaces and docker strings, etc. And it only depends on consult and URL retrieve, which is built in. You don't really need anything else for it, but of course, using other packages like Embark, Vertigo, or some web request packages like Emacs request that also allows you to use curl, or can help and can improve your experience. But at the end, it's up to you. You can use Consult Web without any of these. You can just use Consult and just with consult and URL retrieve, you should be able to use the package, which also means this runs in almost any environment. You can use it in a terminal and get the search. If you're running Emacs in a terminal, it should also work. I think it's pretty nice, especially in environments where you don't have a browser available. Maybe you can then use this to get a lot of the things that you would normally be doing in a browser. Also, it's a modular workflow and modular setting. So you can if you want, you can only load the parts that you need. For example, if you just need an auto suggestion utility, like what we saw with Helm Google earlier, you can then just require the one library that load the one library that gives you the Brave Autosuggest or Google Autosuggest or something else, and then that's all you get. So and each of these sources maybe adds about 100 to 200 lines of code to the whole thing. So at the end, it's a pretty small code base, and it gives you a lot of functionalities. Here is a table of all the sources that is defined right now. You can use any of them by just loading that one package, or by loading everything. You get AI assistants like GPTel and then the ChatGPT, although the ChatGPT is more of just an example to show how you can use HTTP request, but GPTel will give you a more complete functionality set maybe. And then you have search engines like Bing, Brave, and Google. You have Autosuggest from Brave and Autosuggest from Google, although the Autosuggest from Google is not exactly documented, so I'm not sure if it's going to work for long, or Google may decide not to support it. I suggest sticking to things that are documented and officially supported. Then you have things that are more local, like consult line multi or consult nodes or lfeed, that uses what is locally available in your buffers or in your lfeed database, etc. And you also have like academic references like PubMed and Scopus, or YouTube videos, Wikipedia. I'll probably add more to this list over time. Maybe Reddit would be a good candidate here. Maybe some other search providers. So if you like it and you start using the package and you think of some news source that makes sense, please feel free to reach out and I'll try to add them. Of course, I'm not going to try to add every possible source in the world. I will add the ones that are generally useful for lots of users, and for everything else you can always add your own source, which is the next point here. The package is customizable. There's lots of customization feature to do exactly what you want. You can have dynamic ones, can have static searches, you can change the default action, preview action, etc., etc. You can add your own sources. That would of course take an entirely new, different video to show you how to do that, but in the meanwhile I'm gonna add some instructions to the wiki pages on GitHub repo, so if you want you can also add your own sources to what is already provided, built in. And then if you do make your own sources and etc., I'll ask you to perhaps even put it up on the wiki pages on the GitHub so other users can also benefit from it. And if it's something that is of general use, we can also try to add it to the repository as a built-in default source. And finally, there is power user capabilities here. I showed you already. There's dynamic collection. You can make complex workflows on the fly where you get the results from some source and then you pick some of them with Embark and embark select, and then you run actions on it. Maybe you do some batch processing like what I did earlier with inserting notes on PubMed papers, etc. So you can really quickly get information from whatever source that you like, and then do whatever action you want to do on them in a programmatic way. And here, for example, I'm showing you one example of doing something interesting, which is consultweb doing. I am defining a function that is an interactive function. It takes an input, or it uses consult default Autosuggest command to then take an input from the user. And then what it does is it runs consult web multi with that input, gets the results, loads the top result, and then does embark do what I mean on it, which means it will run the search on the input on a multi-source basis and loads the top result. So let me evaluate this code here and then run consult web doim, and I would do how to do web search in Emacs that we have been using. And when I enter, it takes a second and it tells me which browser you want to use, Arc, and there you go. And note that the difference between this and just doing Google I'm feeling lucky or what comes in Arc browser is that it's not loading the top results that comes from Google. What it's doing is, so let me open consult web multi. It's opening the first result in here in consult web multi, which, as I showed you before, gets sorted by what the selections that I've made in the past. So in this case, if I go down here and let me see. If I pick, let's pick something different. Let's pick the results from GPT. So if I pick this one, now if I go back and do the same thing that I did before, consult web doim, and run that same search, when I enter, it automatically opens it with the GPTL candidate that I picked. So it remembers the selection you made last time and just repeats that. So you can see how useful this can be in terms of creating reproducibility for you as well, instead of just picking the first top result from Google, which may not be what you really want to do when you say do what I mean. So this is, I think, something that is interesting. Also, with a lot of the dynamic functions and also with the consult web multi, maybe I can open the documentation on one of them. There is an input variable called no callback, which then is useful for doing programmatic access to everything that I showed you. So let me actually take this line and here show you one more thing just as an extra. So I can run consult web multi and yeah, let's go here and I say maybe what is Emacs here as input. For sources I can say nil, which means use the default, and for no callback I say T. So what that means is it does not run the default action when I select the candidate. So in this case, if I now pick this one, instead of running the default action, it just returns the candidates. And let me actually change this here to results variable team, maybe drawer as well. And you can see now I have the candidate, which is a hash table with different keys for URL, etc. So you can make your own programmatic functions that take the results from everything I showed you, consultweb multi, dynamic, any of them, and then do something else with them. Maybe you want to select a bunch of those results, get them back, and then run something else with that result. So you can also do this in a programmatic way. Then you don't have to rely on the UI and the selections and everything that is done in the interactive commands of the menu buffer. So I think that's it. If you like the video and if you like what I'm doing here, please like and subscribe. If you use the package and you think it's interesting, please contribute to filing issues and telling me what is missing and what can be improved on the package. And if you really like it, you can also sponsor me on GitHub. If there are any suggestions, anything that can be added, or if you find some interesting new workflows that I haven't talked about here and might be interesting for other people, please share it with the community, either on the GitHub repo or directly contact me. And thank you very much. I think that's it for today.